So Fernandez, Dennis Foggia, Mario Aggi, Jose Antonio Rueda, your reigning Moto3 world champion, along with Tayo Furusato and Dennis Onchu, who was absolutely plumb last at the end of running yesterday. What a disaster for both of the Elfmark VDS Racing Team machines. Any other day you'd be saying that both of them will be able to come through, but I've got to say they are all a little bit at sea as they continue to try and adapt to life without Jake Dixon, who of course won Grand Prix for them last year, as well as try and get their heads around what seems to be a Boscoscuro package that is not the easiest to get along with. You join us here as we come up over the hill at turn 1 and down looking towards pit lane. Lewis, who's it going to be who's going to graduate out of the top 4 placings in this one? Because this is not an easy prediction.
No, never is in this Moto2 class, as competitive as it always is. But if Danny Holgado isn't one of them, then we have a major story on our hands. The World Championship leader, in the end, was benefiting from a Q1 appearance in Brazil because it gave him that extra dry track time and went on to take pole position. Now, who would write him off from doing the same here one weekend on, because it's a path that's been trodden before in Moto2 qualifying. We often see riders go from Q1 to the front row in Q2, but Holgado has been on his back foot so far this weekend and ended free practice 2 this morning with a late crash, so perhaps Croppen's a little fragile for the points leader.
And you're getting ready here for Q1. It's got to be said that, yeah, Danny Holgado may well be in mighty form, and you could say that having coming through Q1 in Goiânia would have been an advantage. But here at Kota, when there's a lot of corners where a lot of things can happen, it's a little bit more of a stressful situation today.
Yeah, pressure on his shoulders. He did say after practice yesterday, when he did get a little bit hot under the collar and irritated, particularly at Andrea Huertas, so he felt got in his way out of one stage or another on his last run. But sometimes it's good to get angry just to release some of that tension and some of that pressure, but he's trying to learn from his teammate here this weekend, David Alonso, who's been the reference, fastest yesterday in practice, and Holgado says that Alonso is just much more confident on the brakes than I am. I'm really struggling to have that same conviction when braking the end of some of these long straights in Austin, so that's something he's going to have to really improve upon. Whatever Angel Piqueras does this weekend, we already know that he is going to carry a major handicap into tomorrow's United States Grand Prix. This is a new rule that came in, of course, for 2026. If your bike stops running when you crash it, you are prohibited from restarting it at the side of the racetrack. Piqueras did not follow those instructions, so 2 of the 16 laps for Piqueras in tomorrow's Moto2 Grand Prix of the United States will be spent going through the long lap loop.
Yeah, he's wanting to be first, but he didn't want to get the first penalty for copying or breaking the new rules in Moto2. We're not far away from getting green on this one, just over a minute or so. Here's Ayumu Sasaki, who has had a mixed start to the season, not quite really picked up from where he left off in 2025. But as far as 2026 is concerned, his first points are on the board. Again, finds himself in Q1.
It's going to be a fascinating and a competitive Q1 session coming up here with the Boscoscoros, as you mentioned, of Mark VDS. 4 Boscoscoros in total in this Q1 session. And Aaron Canet, who has had a bit of a reputation as a bit of a circuit specialist here in Austin, particularly in his Moto3 days. He was often the rider to beat around here. In Moto2, he has had a pole position but not a podium yet. Doesn't feel as if he's going to add to either of those if the form of this weekend is anything to go by.
Another rider I want to talk about, and we did mention it during when the graphic came up. What a disaster for Dennis Onchu. I mean, if Aaron Canet is struggling to get his head around the Boscoscuro, I mean, Dennis Onchu is not a rider you expect to be last at all in any session, in any condition, but that's where we found him yesterday. A travesty almost at the bottom.
He was already angry at the end of Brazil, given that he finished down in 20th place, having reached Q2 automatically, and we've already seen 1 or 2 movements, some body language on the bike that suggests that he's really struggling to keep his temper under control at the moment. Dennis Onchu, of course, a Grand Prix winner in this class on a couple of occasions last season, but certainly appears that he's quite a way away from adding to that in the early stages of this Moto2 season. On board with the World Championship leader, Danny Holgado. What chance of him joining his teammate David Alonso in the battle for pole? His team boss, Nico Tirol, is downstairs with us.
Yeah, he certainly is. Nico, great to speak to you, although not in the circumstances that Danny's in Q1 again. Just talk us through what he's struggled with this weekend in back-to-back Q1s. How's he feeling coming into qualifying?
Yes, he said before that yesterday was the best feeling, but this morning at the beginning he to know something on the track that feel more comfortable, and we will see now what he do. But it's a long season, and the two is very difficult to be all racing on top. We need to, it's no stress, and we will see if we're going to do. This is the perfect situation for Danny.
He said yesterday that he was struggling under braking compared to David, who's obviously really strong and looked strong all weekend. Has he made a step in that direction this morning as Danny?
Yeah, they have a different style. Maybe some tracks coming better for Danny, and other tracks like his track coming better for David's style. David is an incredible breaker rider and also stop and go rider, and he have a very good confidence in this track, and we will see. But we are in general super happy because both riders super strong. This is super long season. We will see today, but
we have David obviously coming up in Q2. How strong as he looks this weekend on the pace and on one lap yesterday, especially, he looked by far and away the fastest rider. Is that true coming into qualifying?
Yes, David yesterday had a very good pace. He's super good bike. Anyway, today the target is trying to be in the first or second row. If David in front.
You'd expect that Danny Holgado is going to get there. He's been on the front row in both of the Grand Prix we've had so far. It's whether or not he can clear this jungle of Q1, which is slightly less of a jungle in Moto2 in comparison to Moto3, but again, it's unwanted stress for the 96.
And because there are so many competitive riders in this class, it's by no means an easy cakewalk, because we've got a crash there for Yuki Sasaki. His bike's now coming back onto the racetrack. Careful, right? Unfortunately, they had a good advanced view of that to not run into the bike. That's the risk with this first sector here, the snaking S-bends. That is a second crash of the weekend for Sasaki.
Yeah, Ayumu Sasaki's lucky himself as well. Good to see him up on his feet, but just saw that bit of a scrape mark and load of dust picked up when we were riding on board just a moment ago, and we're going to see it again. This is from the far shot. Oh, he loses it very early at turn 3, and then it's his teammates onto Van den Gorberg, who is behind him as well, as it looked like time for a Sato. Yes, indeed it was, and through comes Danny Holgado, and then everybody just has to pick up. Mario Aggi nearly comes a cropper too.
Yeah, so everyone's first lap's really scuppered as a result of that, because Sasaki was the first rider. Red flag has come out. The bike clearly does need retrieving from the side of the racetrack, and I certainly wouldn't want to be racing out there as a marshal in the middle of turns 5, 6 and 7, which are taken around about 120 kilometers an hour on a Moto2 bike, and of course Ayumu Sasaki still trudging away from the scene, so we'll have a temporary pause to this Moto2 qualifying session.
And that'll be in his interest as well. Ayumu Sasaki now will be able to get back to pit lane. One thing about this here at Kota, because it is so safe, and what I mean by that is there's so much runoff, that actually does mean that the marshal posts are quite far away at some points, and when you're losing it there at turn 3 and ending up over at turn 5 with the bike in the middle of the road, not really a surprise that perhaps the marshals need a little bit more time than the 2 minutes or so that they are gifted for, which is a lap time round here. They need a little bit more time just to get that bike out of harm's way, just in case anyone else follows and does the same.
Yeah, Ayumu Sasaki, who of course didn't start the Brazilian Grand Prix, had some problems before the lights even went out in Goiânia, didn't start that one, and he's barely started this Q1 session in Austin before going down. Of course, whether they can get that bike back and get it repaired remains to be seen, but it certainly would appear at the moment he's on course to start at the back of the grid. Shouldn't be a particularly long delay though. Once that bike is retrieved, we should be good to go again.
No, exactly. It should be pretty quick. They'll have a quick look at the track just in case anything spilt out whilst that bike was on its side. But Ayumu Sasaki is not of any concern. He was up on his feet and straight away walking away from the scene of the crash. Of course, we have got the MotoGP sprint coming up in an hour and a quarter, where the rider on the right-hand side of the screen, Top Rack Radicale, will be looking to see if he can improve on his qualifying position. But an hour and a quarter, we're now we'll have a couple of minutes delay here further, just while everyone gets back to the correct marshal post and they retrieve the stricken number 71 machine. But maybe we're just going to be eating into our build-up for the MotoGP sprint.
It does, I guess, reduce potentially the competition for Danny Holgado, the championship leader in this session. Ayumu Sasaki was the first rider outside the top 14 at the end of practice yesterday, so he was potentially one of those that could have threatened a place in the top 4. In terms of the other competition for Holgado, which is what we were discussing before Ayumu Sasaki crashed, Takeras for sure there on screen would have been one of them. Of course, we do have a former Moto2 winner around the Circuit of the Americas in this session in the form of Sergio Garcia. So plenty of competition for Danny Holgado, and clearly they do just want to have a good look at the racetrack and double check that they're just scrape marks from a bike and not some fluids from that bike that the RW Calyx of Sasaki has dropped.
You mentioned Sergio Garcia getting ready for his 50th start in the class this weekend, but his first win, as you said, came at Kota back in 2024. It seems a long time ago since we saw Sergio Garcia showing any kind of race-winning form, though.
Unfortunately, the change of the second season on that board, that Boscoscuro wasn't a successful one after his championship campaign. Really did career off the rails mid-2024. Now on a Calyx, of course, Sergio Garcia, who's hoping that with the Cassini squad he can revitalise his Moto2 career. Well, for Danny Holgado, this is all just about staying calm in these kind of situations. It's all out of his control. Nothing he can do at the moment. Of course, an incident away from him, a crash for Ayumu Sasaki. And the bike potentially dropping some fluids on the racetrack after it travelled a long way on its side. So a lot of experience in that Aspar team, as there is within this Red Bull KTM IO squad with Jose Antonio Rueda. So it's all about ensuring that the riders just keep their heads, keep their calm, because of course with 3.5 minutes already gone in this Q2 session, we might be in the realms of only one run now being available to this field when the session does restart.
It's going to be more than 2 minutes for the outlap as well, so we're going to be around 9.5 minutes at very, very quickest, if not more.
Lapping it in, you're looking at 7 minutes, aren't you?
Exactly, this is it. By the time the first time lapse come in, you're looking towards 7 minutes. So not a lot of time. So therefore, yeah, you've got to think that it's going to be a 3-lap, 4-lap perhaps run right at the end, as we have a look at Dennis Foggia, who continues to replace the injured Luca Lanetta down there at the HDR Speed RS team.
Yeah, we've all been there. Dennis Foggia, who dropped the lid from his bottle and didn't know where it had gone as it disappeared under his chair. He's in for the injured Luca Lanetta, we remind you, of course, this weekend.
We should have those little caps on that annoy us all when we're trying to drink from the bottle and it ends up halfway up our hooter, but not over here in the States. Sounds like there's a little bit of fluid down at turn 5. That's what the concern is. Not oil, but some sort of coolant or fluid down at turn 5. So we're just going to be under red flag conditions for a little bit longer. Of course, safety absolutely paramount in motorcycle racing across the board, whether that's here MotoGP or in domestic championships or World Superbikes as well. And of course, racing this weekend at Portimao. Not to give the results away, but Miguel Oliveira definitely doing the home crowd very, very well indeed earlier on today. But back here at Kota, Ayumu Sasaki has got back in his box for the Minerva Media Foglia team, and he's just down there now getting a little bit of a chat to by the team. They'll be waiting for that bike to come back, and hopefully for Ayumu, the number 71 session might not all be over just yet.
Yeah, he's certainly making clear gestures to the team that he's all okay. This was the moment there in the middle of 3, and of course the bike making its way all the way to 5 was all on its side through all of that. So that's where coolant or fluid is going to drop out, as the bike is travelling all the way on its side. And as mentioned, all the credit to the riders, all following that. Some, of course, did have a couple of corners to see what was developing there, but all doing a fine job to avoid the stricken 71.
Whilst we're under red flag conditions, let's just check in with our pit lane reporter, Elliot York. El, what have you got for us?
Yeah, down here just outside the MSI garage. Sorry, it's a bit loud. Gents bikes warming up. Antonio, talk about Angel and your team. Ivan, of course, going well. We'll start with Angel, though he's got a double on that penalty, unfortunately, this weekend, but he looks really strong in his opening 2 Grand Prix. What's the vibe like on his side of the garage?
Yeah, for sure. We are so happy with his improvement day by day. He's showing us like if he was a mature rider, you know, more than we expect. He's fast for sure. He's showing Moto3. Now we need to finish the races to start to score points. But at the moment we are quite happy with the Angel side. And about Ivan, he finished very well last season with good results. He was more or less from mid-season close and always more or less inside the top 10. He finished with the podium in Valencia, and he started very well the season. We struggled a bit in the last race, but at the beginning of the championship, I think we will be going ahead.
What's impressed you most about Angel so far this season, adapting to Moto2? Of course, he was with you guys in Moto3 last year, so you know him very well. What's impressed you most, him stepping up into the class in Moto2?
Like I told you before, no, he's showing us like he has more experience than we expect, no? He's rookie, but it's like he's showing like mature, no? He demands things inside the box that are surprising, no, for us, because he's not normally a rookie rider. But anyway, we need to finish the races, and it's a long process. It's not only about 2 races.
Ivan coming up in Q2, of course. Obviously, you switched from Boscuro to Calix for this season. How well has he adapted? It looks like it's been quite a smooth process so far for you and for the rider and the team, sorry.
Yeah, Ivan was struggling in some points last year with the Boscuro bike. Anyway, he was fast. He understood very well the class. With that bike, I think he improved these weak points that he had last year. Then I think this is also one of the main points for improve.
What's the weak points that he had last year in terms of on the Boscuro that he's been able to improve on the Calix?
We were struggling, especially turning the bike, but the rest was normally okay. It's true with the Calix, it's more easy, but at the end, both bikes are good. I mean, for us it's like more easy, but you reach one point when you have to win a race or fight for a championship that at the end the rider is the most important, more than the bike in that case.
Antonio, thank you for your time and good luck for the session and the race of tomorrow as well.
Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you very much to Elliot as well, as we have a look at Ayumi Sasaki. The leaf blowers are still out there, so they're just making sure that a bit of powder that's gone down soaks up whatever was already down there on the track. They're getting a load more of it down as well, so we're still going to have a few more minutes until we can go green for Moto2 Q1's restart. God, that looks a bit dusty. Probably need a mask on and some goggles, perhaps, just to make sure that it doesn't go in your eyes or mouth.
PPE required down there at turn 5, and that's going to be a tricky corner to get right once we get up and running, of course. That's right in the middle of those consecutive changes of direction from turn 2 all the way up to turn 9. You're constantly changing from one side of the bike to the other, so it's going to be something that the riders will have to give their due care and attention to in the initial laps once we get back up and running.
We are hopefully not going to be too much longer though. It looked like they were just putting down the finishing touches and then getting it dried, so let's wait and see. We have a look at what is probably the best viewpoint of any racetrack anywhere in the world. Just don't look down, because that's when you start yeah, well, at least that's where I start having a little bit of a moment up there. But the Kota Tower just next to Hayden Hill. Of course, this year there is a special celebration or commemoration going on the Hayden Hill. It is 20 years, of course, this year since Nicky Hayden not just won in the States for the second time, but also took the MotoGP crown in that thriller back in Valencia 2006. That one still living long in the memories of everyone in the paddock.
Yeah, one or two American legends with their fingerprint on this circuit, the Hayden Hill, but also, of course, Kevin Schwantz heavily involved in the designing of this racetrack. Confirmation on our timing screens that the Moto2's qualifying session will restart at 13:56 local time. That is in a minute and a half from now.
Indeed, not too far away. And whilst we're talking just briefly on MotoGP American royalty, King Kenny Roberts inducted into the Hall of Fame proper this weekend. And on hand his good rival and kind of, you could say, MotoGP stalwart Freddie Spencer, along with Kevin Schwantz. They are all here this weekend, and I'm sure a couple more creep out onto the grid tomorrow. The Grand Prix of the United States, a bit of a rename for this year, but it sounds proper when you've got King Kenny in the paddock.
Of course, from an American point of view, the fans here in the grandstands, their interest will certainly be on qualifying 2 here in Moto2, where we find both of the American racing Calixes, including the sole American in this Moto2 field, Joe Roberts, of course. He will attend practice, so we'll be seeing him in Q2. We'll find out in 35 seconds, or begin to find out which 4 riders will join.
Yeah, it was his best Friday of the year, Joe Roberts, of course. Missed the cut last time out, didn't get into Q2 directly, but he's looking to try and, if he can, qualify in the top 10 for the first time this year. That is Aaron Canet and Dennis Onchu. They work their way down towards the end of pit lane. This is also Alberto Ferrandez, as we are now just 10 seconds away or so before we do get the restart of Moto2 Q1. This is obviously going to have a small knock-on effect for the MotoGP sprint, and of course when we have that information we will give it to you. Hopefully the start time is the same, but we might be on for a bit of a truncated build-up to what is going to be a blockbuster sprint here as well.
Yeah, given that, as I mentioned, there is not an awful lot of time to play with here around such a long lap. No surprise that the entire field in this Moto2 Q1 session have piled straight out onto the racetrack, and they'll be keen to find out right now on this outlap as they approach turn 5 of just what kind of differing grip levels they find from the last time they went through that corner.
Yeah, Ayumu Sasaki, he's looking to try and get ready to get moving, but I think we'll have to wait until that bike is back in the box, and perhaps 10 minutes or so it's just going to be all a little bit too much, but we'll have to wait and see. It's Alex Escridge who leads them all now. This is out through turn 9 and then over down towards the hill of turn 10 and the heavy bumpy braking area of turn 11, and already riders trying to fight for position, trying to fight for a bit of clear air. Jose Antonio Rueda's got plenty of it. He's at the very back of this group, but those in the middle, slipstream will be key and vital. But as you can see, it is already 4 abreast all the way there. It's not a race, you know, guys. That's coming up tomorrow. Everybody keen to try and get some clear air at the front, and it's Daniel Olgado who does have said clear air.
Alex Escridge at the inside there of Dennis Onchu. Looking back from Olgado, that's Ferrandez getting busy up the inside of Onchu too, who's now getting shuffled back down this queue. Yeah, Daniel Olgado is definitely one who just wants clear, empty time. There'll be some in this group who'll be quite happy to be further back and just use a bit of a reference from up ahead of him. But Daniel Olgado is certainly not one of those.
They're going to have to take it easy, of course, on the opening couple of laps. You don't want to be attacking a bit of a dusty racing line straight out the crate without having a lap or so to get on with it. The thing is here, Lewis, they haven't got the time on their side and neither the distance of this lap on their side like in Guyana. You can't really roll yourself out gently. You've got to attack to the max straight away.
Yeah, this is just going to be one run. Just fuel it up to the end of the session, one set of tyres, go out there and go for it. And Danny Holgado on the 96 is going to lead them up. Behind him is Escridge on the 11, the forward bike. Behind them, the Boscascoro, the 54 for Ferrandez. It looked like Onchu was next to one, or certainly one of the Alpine, yes, bikes was there. It is Onchu on the 53. So as we now make our way through this first sector, we wind our way through this series of second and third gear corners, and we're now going to tackle the area where there was a little bit of cement dust or a little bit of repair work. There it was, just in the middle of the right-hander. Their safety through.
Everyone's safety through and following Danny Holgado at the moment. I tell you what, Alex Escridge could do a lot worse than follow Danny Holgado. You could argue that Holgado really shouldn't be in this session at all, but it was Escridge who was quicker than him yesterday and looks a bit quicker than him out there on his opening lap.
2 of our 3 front row starters last weekend in Brazil. The hearts went out to Escridge, didn't they, on the final lap, having been in the podium positions in Brazil for every lap of the Grand Prix except the last one.
It's annoying, but it is the one that you really don't want to be losing positions the last lap. But then again, those behind, they're the ones that you need to attack on. You can't really let that slide either. So Alex Escridge's waits for a first podium continues. But I'll tell you what, he might be on course to move through to Q2 if he can just keep Danny Holgado in sight here. They're down at turn 12, and it's that short, sharp boost up towards 13. Ferrandez is in the middle of 2 groups, really. The top 2 on this track, Holgado and Escridge. Then in behind them, it's Onchu and Piqueras. And then it's Canet and Jorge Navarro. So they're coming through. This is turn 15 up through 16, 17 and 18. 3 long right-handers. And it's the double lefts that end this lap. And then we'll have our first look at what they've got to do.
Piqueras at the inside there of Onchu rounding 16, 17 and 18. So Onchu getting shuffled back even further on this first full lap. Of course, an important session for Piqueras to try and mitigate the damage that will be done by his double long lap penalty tomorrow.
He needs to get further up the field, doesn't he? Indeed, he needs to be into Q2. Let's see what we've got then. Opening gambits coming in. 206.1. That's not slow from Daniel Olgado. Right, it's a Escridge at all. 206.2 for Aaron Canet and 2:06.3 for Angel Pequeira. So everyone besides Sasaki, who remains in the pits, has got at least a banker lap time in. We jump on board with Danny Holgado, 2:06.1. That would have been good enough to put him up in second yesterday. So Holgado's pace is right there with the front runners of Friday, but he finds himself in Q1 on Saturday.
Yeah, the fastest lap of the weekend was his teammate David Alonso at 2:05.847, a new lap record. Pirelli had gone a step softer on the tyres here this weekend than they did in Austin 1 year ago. Having taken the SC0 and the SC1, they realised that medium tyre, the SC1, just wasn't competitive enough. No rider ran it in the Grand Prix itself, so they have brought in the SCX, the super soft, for this second, or should I say third, Moto2 encounter for Pirelli in Austin.
Oh, Holgado's pushing on there at the turn 11 hairpin. I think he may have just got that pull down just in time, and he's now going to be punching a big hole in the air for Alex Escreech, who is already a tenth and a half up through the opening sector, make that opening 2 sectors. Holgado is 2 red helmets as well, as they now enter the second half of this lap. Down the gearbox to first gear all the way towards the apex at turn 12 as we get ready to have a look at Ayumu Sasaki, and that is a fine job by the Minerva Foglia team of RW Racing to get that bike ship shape and tiddly tidy and ready to attack the final 5 minutes here at COTA in Q1.
So we have the full complement of 14 riders back out on the racetrack. Just for your information, Moto2 Q2 will get underway at 17 minutes past the hour, so 10 minutes after the conclusion, as always, of this qualifying 1 session. No news yet about a change of start time for the Tissot Sprint.
And of course we will inform you when and if we get said news. Coming down through turn 19 up towards turn 20 then, this could be a big goalpost moving lap from Danny Holgado, who gets through the final corner nice and safely and soundly, comes to the line. It's a 2:05.814. Now that is relative to yesterday, because that is a new lap record. That is quicker than what David Alonso was able to do yesterday. So Danny Holgado's pace is not up for discussion, it's not up for question. He's P1 by a tenth of a second over Angel Pequeras, your rookie, in second. Alex Escreech third, fourth to Connect as a couple of riders go on deep at turn 1. That looks like it was Dennis Foggia and Thomas van den Gullenberg.
Fashionably late, but Danny Holgado has now joined the party in Austin this weekend. A 2:05.8, just a fraction faster than his teammate Alonso went in practice yesterday. Pequeras up in second, he's also found a high 2:05. Impressive again from the rookie Escreech, and Connect at the moment complete your top 4. There is your final confirmation, so a 10-minute delay to the Tissot Sprint. It will now get underway in just over an hour's time.
Yeah, that's not too bad, and of course your build-up then remains the same. Matt Burt will be joining Lewis in the comms box for that one. I'm going to be heading to the grid to hopefully chat to some guys down there and bringing you some insight. But right now it's insight to the final 4 or so minutes of Moto2 Q1. Mario Aggi is there in 5th place at the moment, but he's got to find time. This lap will be doing it though, and he's got a big amount of slipstream to be gained with Alberto Ferrandez and Dennis Onchu right up ahead of him. And we need to be having a look as well at Angel Pequeras, a little bit further up the road, but he's 2 sectors in and he's a 10th under what the fastest lap times is so far in this session.
Yeah, actually, of course, has been in both Q2 sessions so far this year, and of course qualified 9th in both of them. His equal career best on the grid for a Moto2 race. We follow Connect on the Boscoscuro, the 44. At the moment, he's closing in on the back of Jose Antonio Rueda, trying to defend his 4th place.
Tell you what, if Aggi can hold it, he can't, because he's bailed out of it. It's okay. So if Connect can hold it, and he can't either. So that 3rd sector just going away for Aggi, Connect, and likewise Pequeras as well. So that 3rd sector not easy to hustle out a lap time. But we pick up Pequeras. He's in the final corner now. He's in a short burst to the line, and let's see what he's got. Does he improve? No, he doesn't. 2/10 off what Holgado was able to do. He's still second though.
Not seeing anything really substantial yet from Sergio Garcia either. The 2024 winner is he's currently sitting in 13th place. He now climbs up at 3 places into 2 for the 2:07.1 for Garcia. He's got to find the best part of a second if he's going to make Q2.
Yeah, best part of a second, which with 2.5 minutes on the clock is not looking very likely, but you know, never write it out. Aaron Canet there in 4th. Norman Rank looking on, and he doesn't look too impressed with what he's seen. Canet, though, good enough at the moment in 4th place, but you get the feeling if Aggi can hook up that lap, and likewise if who else was it who was on a lap just a moment ago? Dennis Onchu and Aaron Canet, if they can all hook up laps, then you know, maybe there's still a bit of time left in this track.
with Sasaki then, his first genuine time lap of the session about to come in. Of course, made it further than he did on his first run, but I guess it's all about just staying calm here. Very difficult to do, of course, when you've only got essentially 2 time laps to try and put something together. And Sasaki's now about at 3/4 of the way through his first, as he now rounds turn 16, 1.2 seconds off, so he's not going to move up more than a position or 2, and he's then going to have one more shot to try and lift himself up the grid. I think Q2 is a big ask for Sasaki under the circumstances, but he's going to try and limit the damage as best he can.
Exactly. If he can get a lap time on the board, and if he even gets ahead of 2 or 3 riders, then he can say that it was worth going out for. Final corner time for Sasaki. The Japanese rider's first lap time comes in, and it's good enough for 9th place, so it's ahead of his fellow countryman Taya Furusato. It's ahead of Sergio Garcia for the time being. Garcia, we need to be picking up the number 3 in the 2024 Moto2 Grand Prix winner around this Circuit of the Americas, because he's in the 3rd sector. He's got a little bit of traffic in Ferrandez, but Garcia is definitely hustling that Gracidi Moto2 machine around here, but 9/10 off, that's not going to be doing too much to threaten the top 4 placing.
Now they're going to get one more shot at this group who are up the road. I guess the issue they've all got here, doing just the one run because of the red flag early on, the best will have gone now from these SCX super soft tyres. They're good for maybe 1 or 2 flying laps, but once you get up to lap 3, 4 and 5, you're not going to get that explosive pace, that initial drift that you get from a brand new tyre. So that's why we're starting to see a lot of grey helmets on our timing screen.
And round here as well, it's a long lap, and that would make perfect sense as to why times were dropping off in the 3rd and 4th sectors, but still relatively competitive through the opening half of this 5.5 kilometre Circuit of the Americas lap. We are into the final 30 seconds of timed action. These guys on their final flying lap. Ayumi Sasaki has not just been done out of this yet. 3/10 off. He's estimated to move up into 6th in the session. It would at least get him a little bit further up in the grid for tomorrow, but really hiding to nothing. You get the impression of here for Sasaki. He's not going to threaten the top 4.
Yeah, he might just get ahead of his teammate Van den Goorberg, who's 10th of a second and 1 place ahead of him on the grid. The RW duo currently 8th and 9th. Ferrandez, as you can see, with the personal best in the 1st sector. Has he still got some grip from the Pirellis under his Boscascuro to launch a surprise Q2 bid?
I've got to say, Picaras and Canet, 2nd and 4th in this session, are in the pit, so I think Picaras is okay, but it's a very bold move for Aaron Canet to come in. But then again, if you've got no tyre under you, then what else can you do? Alberto Ferrandez's time has gone away from him in the 2nd sector. This is a personal best for Sasaki, so we'll get him across the line. Let's see if he does move up any positions. He comes across the line. Yeah, it does go 6th, so salvage job, and it's a matter of what if for Ayumi Sasaki. Had he not crashed, had he not brought out the red flag, maybe he could have threatened to be inside that top 4. But if buts and maybes aside, it's 6th for the Japanese rider.
Yeah, not a bad save in the end under the circumstances, but not what he signed for when Q1 began. As Ferrandez is leaving everything out there to try and join his teammate Ifan Guevara in 4th flying 2, but it looks like a forlorn hope for Ferrandez.
Yeah, it does. I tell you what, he's trying though. Oh, the front end of that bumping away through turn 19, right out to the curb. Alberto Ferrandez has tried his hardest here. He's going to be, if he can hold 7/10, he will move up. But let's see, he's 8th at the minute, going to go 6th, so nudges Sasaki back. So not a bad lap at all from Alberto Ferrandez. But again, looks like the tyres just not with them in the final stages. The Screech has taken the checkered flag, that's 3rd, so your top 4 are locked in at the moment, and Mario Aggi isn't on anything spectacular. These grey helmets all the way around. So you've run 4, and your 4 that will move through. Danny Holgado, Angel Picaras, Alex Escridge, and Aaron Canet, who sat in the box, but in the end, he is not punished for his early end to Moto2 Q1.
At the moment, it's following the template from Brazil, isn't it, for Danny Holgado? He went from Q1 to pole position last weekend. Well, he's halfway to doing exactly the same here in Austin. It would be a bit of a turn up for the books, the way his weekend has been going, but Holgado keeps himself very much in the hunt.
P1 in Q1 last time out. He then went on to take P1 in Q2, and we know what happened on Sunday. So I wonder if it's going to be a repeat performance for Danny Holgado. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've still got an 18-rider qualifying pole position shootout coming up in just a few moments' time. And I can imagine that they're going to want to get on with this to not perhaps get these guys too delayed, having had a red flag already. Alex Escridge in. He won't be getting unleathered just yet, though, because he's going to be going out in just a short while. He was 3rd in that session, more than good enough to move through to have a say in the pole battle. At that time, also respectable as well, 261.
He moves forward from 1 into qualifying 2. We'll have 22 Grand Prix of these punts. The Tissot bridge is still towards the sharp end, and we've got every evidence so far that he's going to be.
It's all right. Pun Club can welcome a new member, of course, Lewis. You're more than welcome to join myself, Matt Burt, and Elliot York, founding members of Joke Central here in MotoGP.
No joke down at MotoVDS though so far. Certainly not for Denis Sonchu. Alberto Ferrandis is certainly enjoying himself at the side of the racetrack. Certainly comfortable on the deck chair, but unfortunately his hot seat in Q2 has gone awry.
Channels is in a Fernando Alonso down there on a deck chair. So
I'll watch here, lads, if you don't mind.
I tell you what, he looks quite comfortable down there. Look more comfortable than his last flying lap at least. Alberto Ferrandis, well, he's not in any rush to get back, is he, to Q1, because he's not going into Q2. Danny Holgado leads the way.
Angel Piqueras, Alex Escridge and Aaron Canet join him in the battle for pole position. Mario Adji just missing out in 5th ahead of Alberto Ferrandis, who looks like he's got a good view for the battle for pole coming up shortly. Yuichi Saki, whose crash caused that initial delay, 7th ahead of Jorge Navarro and Zonta van der Goldberg. Tyler Rosato, 10th, 2024 winner Sergio Garcia, 11th, so if he's going to repeat that, he's going to have to do it from 25th on the grid. Behind him are Denis Sonchu from MotoVDS, Dennis Foggia and Jose Antonio Rueda. The battle for pole in Moto2, which will feature the World Championship leader Danny Holgado. That's on the way next.
Red Bull Grand Prix of the United States. We are very, very close indeed to the MotoGP Tissot Sprint. It is 10 minutes later than normal. That's courtesy of a red flag brought out by Yuri Sasaki in Moto2 Q1 that has just finished. But we are now at the business end of Sprint Saturday. Moto2 Q2 coming up next. You're in the company of myself, Kiko Giles, Lewis Sotheby next to me, Elliot York down in pit lane, and he is going to be grabbing some guests as well, I'm sure, as we look down on this phenomenal Circuit of the Americas here in Austin, Texas, ready to bring you the pole battle in Moto2. We've seen who is already moving on through, but let's be having a look and seeing who exactly is already locked in and looking to see if they can perhaps disrupt what has been a very, very fast, at least in Q1, Danny Holgado, who led the charge earlier on today. This is the Dakota Tower, as we have a look at the bravest fans of them all at the very top of that. I'm quite comfortable up here in commentary, not only with the air conditioning, but my feet firmly on the ground.
That is the beautiful skyline of Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. But calling the tune so far this weekend has been Darren Alonso in practice. What was an all-time lap record that has since changed. Once qualifying began, Manuel Gonzalez, who has been on the floor twice, was second quickest yesterday. Barry Baltus next up ahead of Philip Salach for the American Racing Team. More on them shortly. Senna Aegis back on form this weekend. Tony Arbolino, a former COTA winner. Ivan Ortola, a former COTA winner in Moto3, of course, also in this session, along with Celestino Vietti. Ethan Guevara, who's had some problems in practice. Joe Roberts, of course, a former podium finisher and representing the United States and American Racing in Q2. Colin Vaya, Alonso Lopez, Adrian Huertas and superstar of Brazil, Danny Munoz, joined by the top 4 from qualifying 1. Danny Holgado, Angel Piqueras, Alex Escridge and Aaron Canet.
Indeed they are, and there's plenty for the OnlyFans American Racing Team and all of the American fans in this COTA facility to be cheering about. Getting some inside line from the box. Elliot York, what have you got?
Yeah, cheers, gents. Down here with Eton, but Eton, obviously, a fantastic weekend for you guys. A home Grand Prix for yourselves and Joe, of course, as well. And great to see Joe in Q2 Auto Ashley for the first time this season. Looks a more confident rider this weekend. How's he feeling ahead of his home Grand Prix?
No, I think he's feeling good. You know, he did a big step from the last 2 races, start Q2, and he feels comfortable. So I think the goal right now is just to be as top as possible for the race tomorrow. Okay, good mood. We see a lot of family guests in the home race. We're exciting. We're looking good.
He made some steps forward in terms of the feeling on the bike so far this weekend.
I think the feeling and the fact that after the injuries last year, just to be back on the same bike. He didn't roll from, I think, October last year. So yeah, much more comfortable. He's feeling good. He feels that he can push it across the bike. So looking good.
And on the other side of the box, Philip also getting into Q2 again. He's going well with you guys and looking like a fast rider. How's he feeling ahead of qualifying? He had a good day yesterday up inside the top four.
Yeah, great addition to the team. You know, young, patient, funny guy, fun to work with, and he's doing good. He's doing great. I think he adapted really quickly. We like the team. We like him very much. Small incident in the morning, but he's okay physically, no problem. Yeah, again, I hope I see them in the park tournament.
Good relationship between these two as well, working together as a team quite well.
Amazing relationship, really. Like, you know, I think it's the first time that we have a team, teammates that getting along very well. Next week they'll be together in Los Angeles. We build them some kind of training program for the next 4 weeks, the first 4 weeks that we have. And yeah, some fun in Los Angeles.
Good to hear, Ethan, and good luck for the session and tomorrow as well.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Some fun in LA. Well, that doesn't sound too arduous, does it? Thank you, Eaton. Thank you, Elliot, down there in the OnlyFans American Racing Team camp. And yeah, reason for Joe Roberts to be relatively happy after Friday.
Yes, we've seen potential from Joe Roberts so far this season, but unfortunately, to this day, no World Championship points. And there's every reason to suspect that he can get himself in the top 10 on the grid for his home Grand Prix. And clearly some harmony within the American Racing Team, which is good to see. A small incident was how Eaton described Philip Salach's incident. I'll perhaps describe it as a little bit bigger than that. Certainly looked it at the time, clearly no real damage done, but an unusual high side for Philip Salach as he was trying to get into pit lane this morning.
Yeah, he'll be hoping for no such dramas coming up in the next 15 minutes. We now go green as we start the journey to find out who is going to start Moto2's Grand Prix tomorrow on pole position. They head up towards turn 1, and that massive, great big American flag, which has become so iconic over the years here at COTA. And they drop down, they work their way through the snake, and when they come out the other side, they'll see a massive, great big Texan flag as well, just to remind you what part of the States we're in. Manu Gonzalez, he's been quick this weekend, and I was talking to him yesterday. Big factor for tomorrow's Grand Prix, tyre life, and a big factor for today's qualified, perfection. Hard round here.
Yeah, and he hasn't been perfect so far this weekend. I did say in his trying, which you saw, keep the number of mistakes to a minimum. He then went out and crashed during FP2 this morning. Turn 1 has caught him out twice so far this weekend, so he's certainly going to have to give the uphill climb to the first corner his full care and attention when he gets up and running in this Q2 session.
Down towards turn 11 and working our way down the back straight. Everyone looking for a little bit of track position. We touched on this earlier on in Moto2 and massively in Moto3 because track position does mean a lot more in the smaller classes. But here in Moto2 you can see the two American Racing Calexes are out on track together. That's Senna Aegis. Nice of Senna to be in Q2 this weekend. It was such a difficult weekend over in Brazil. I was chatting to his dad yesterday, and I think the whole team were just happy to get out of Brazil, move on to COTA, and then they'll get back to their European bases, and we'll start what whilst we're at COTA, we've got to mention Wayne Rainey, once coined as the ground war. Everyone back in familiar territory and terra firma. Let's see what Senna Aegis can do. Let's see if he can perhaps replicate some of his strengths that we saw him take a first pole back in the season opening Thai GP here this weekend. Pole might be a big ask, but he'll be looking for the front two rows of the grid, the number 81.
Yeah, his longer run, his rhythm on Friday afternoon looked pretty competitive. It looked competitive with his teammate Manu Gonzalez, clearly ahead of them on Friday, both in long run pace and in single lap pace was this young man, David Alonso, on the number 80, who of course arrived here last year having had a miserable start to like in Moto2. He's come an awful long way in the last 12 months, and he comes into this qualifying session, to many, certainly to me at least, as the favourite.
He set a 2:05.847. That has since been bettered by his teammates, but David Alonso really getting on with this COTA circuit this year in Moto2, and is the first rider to work their way through the opening sector. I think he's got, is it Ivan Ortola just right in behind him, or is it Angel Piqueras? Can't quite see which one of the MSI machines. It is Piqueras as they come through the timing beam. Oh, yellow flags already in sector 2, and that's where David Alonso is right now. So that could be, is that Alonso? No, it won't be Alonso Lopez, because it's got to be someone who is either behind, or is it Alonso Lopez?
Yeah, the 21's moving on the beast. Alonso's the first rider in this queue, so he won't be delivering. I think it would be Alex. Ivan Ortola, a former Moto3 winner around here. He's going to be nailed down in 18th place on the grid after that.
Ivan Ortola, well, I'll tell you what, his Moto3 victory did come from a bit further back on the day. He did lose a load of positions due to that massive turn 2 moment, but he's had a proper big get-off, and that looks in that sector 7, 8 and 9, and Ivan Ortola has come to a horrible stop, but at least he's up on his feet. Yellow flag's still out at turn 7, but the green flags are being waved now at turns 8 and 9. Not a good start to Ortola, 18th on the grid for tomorrow, as that bike at that point of the track probably would have taken a bit of a damaging.
Yeah, of course, his teammates got 2 non-lap penalties to serve tomorrow, so he's already going to be on his back foot, even if he starts somewhere near the front. And I've got to say, looking at the way this lap club's unfolding, he might well be somewhere near the front, because he's a fraction quicker than Alonso through the first 3 sectors, just using the number 80 as a bit of a marker up ahead of him, and Figueras is 1 corner away from a lap that might well put him on provisional pole.
Oh, I think Alonso just got that a little bit wrong as well at the final corner. Looks a little bit offline, but we'll see. Oh, wasn't offline enough. 205.5, 205.490. Alonso Lopez at 205.478. So the times here coming in already on the opening laps of Moto2 Q2 are absolutely flying. That is fantastic stuff. So the track is in great condition. Manu Gonzalez at 205.9. He probably would have thought good enough for the front row. He's 5th.
He's 5th ahead of his teammate, Senna Aegis. Joe Roberts, the home favourite, is in 7th place. Got still 10 minutes for this all to be shaken out, but you have to go back 2.5 years for the last pole position of Alonso Lopez, the Dutch GT, back in 2023.
He's on a personal worst run of form as well. 27 GPs, I believe it is, in consecutive fashion. He's not had a front row. So Alonso Lopez, what a turn up that would be if he can hold on to P1.
Yeah, Phillip Island in 2024, the last time we saw Lopez on the front row of the grid. Figueras sitting 2nd at the moment, having got his strategy absolutely spot on by putting himself right behind David Alonso when this qualifying session began. Gonzalez had a bit of traffic, I saw in the background, on his first lap of the session. I think it was a stridge he was trying to get through on the inside on his first run. So a bit of clear time now for Gonzalez to push on lap 2.
Oh, Barry Baltus just drops over onto the green. I think this lap might be getting canned, but Baltus, great to have him back with us on some kind of form, it's got to be said. I spoke to him yesterday, and a few tweaks here and there. It's just seemingly helping him out a little bit. Buriram, we know, is a bit extreme. Goiani was new for everyone. Kota, yeah, it's got its quirks and its charms, but slightly more normal than our opening 2 Grand Prix. So as we work our way through the sector, look at David Alonso. I tell you what, Lewis, we might be down towards turn 4 at this rate.
Yeah, you can see the distance he's put between himself and Angel Figueras, who's trying to defend his provisional pole position. I'm not so sure he's got much of a defence at the moment, because Alonso really pushing on, and this is the kind of form that we saw from the Colombian yesterday. He's never been on a Moto2 pole position. Of course, was beaten to it by his teammate in Brazil a week ago, but he might be able to put it well beyond reach at 205, 203. Figueras did improve, but he's still a quarter of a second back.
Fantastic lap time from David Alonso, 205, 203. Aegis comes across the line, but he gets caught up behind Joe Roberts. I tell you what, Barry Baltus is where we need to be looking. What's this going to be across the line? Ooh, good enough for 2nd. I think he just lost a little bit in that final sector, but 205, 203 and a 205, 347 are your top 2 times. Everybody in the top 9 places are in the 205, so there is some good time out there on Kota's track today.
Yeah, although we haven't seen much of it from Danny Holgado so far, the previous lap record holder from qualifying 1. That was the lap time he set, and that's now the new record. Holgado so far has done a 206.9, clearly way off the pace, not nailing his first lap, so that's why you can see the championship leader's name down in 15th place.
Yeah, he's actually just gained a place, because Alex Escridge has just had his fastest lap time cancelled, so Escridge is back down to 16th place. Ivan Ortola did go out, but he crashed straight away. Danny Munoz, it's not taken long, only 3 Grand Prix. It was always going to come, wasn't it? Danny Munoz, of course, who was on the podium last time out, is down there. Oh no, he's not. He's set his lap time now. Goes up onto the provisional 4th row of the grid in 12th.
Started from the 4th row last weekend when he was almost leading by the end of the first lap, wasn't he? The best start of his life, so perhaps Munoz is more than comfortable starting back on row 4.
Eat, sleep, qualifying the 4th row, repeat to a podium. That's what Danny Munoz will be looking to do, even though it was 11th last week. He's 12th right now as things stand. I think someone's just gone. I heard some scrape marks in our headsets, but it might have just been someone's knee slide. We haven't had a yellow flag yet. But as they come through past turn 15, we're looking at Manu Gonzalez, who's working his way up through this final sector. I think he's going to be bailing into the pits at the end of this one. 3-lap stints at the moment, fresh rubber, and then go for broke and go for pole. He's at the head of the third row at the moment, so he needs to.
Yeah, P7 on a 2:05.803. Of course, for mentioning qualifying one, the step softer rubber we have this weekend from Pirelli. We have the SCX Super Soft rear tyre, and that's why we're seeing these extraordinary lap times by Moto2 standards. The all-time lap record when we arrived here in Austin early in the week was a 2:07.335. We're a full 2 seconds quicker than that now.
Yeah, and Pirelli coming into MotoGP next year. It's such a shame the regs are changing, because I'd love to have seen one of our current MotoGP monsters with a bit of Pirelli SCX thrown in the rear end. Of course, MotoGP bike slightly different to a Moto2 bike, and of course a World Superbike, which is where Pirelli do a lot of their development work. As we come and have a look at Danny Holgado up towards turn 1, just under 6 minutes left on the clock. Come on then, Danny Holgado, let's see what you've got up your sleeve this time around. 1.7 seconds of drift, having had his first opening gambit banked, but I think I've been expecting a little bit more than that. 2:06.9 is well off what he's capable of doing.
Yes, suspect he might have saved his one remaining brand new tyre for this second lap of qualifying. Do wonder whether Piqueras might have gone for the opposite strategy. Of course, he was right behind Alonso, which certainly would have helped, but Holgado, having come through qualifying one, a little short on brand new tyres for this battle for pole position.
David Alonso just having a little chin wag there with the team down in the box. 5 minutes or so as we pick up Danny Munoz and that fantastic special helmet that he's got this weekend. And let's see what the number 17 can do. He's in 12th place at the moment, drops down the hill and starts the snake. This is through turn 2, brilliant corner, up over a short rise, down the other side, 3 to 4, and then take the curve through turn 5. He's looking quick as Danny Munoz through here. This is turn 6 where we've had the cement dust down, through turn 7 now, building all the time up through the timing point, and I thought he looked quick. Danny Munoz is up in the first sector.
And he hasn't pitted in this session. He's stuck out there for the whole session on one tyre, so we'll see if this lap sort of drifts away from him as the lap unfolds, because we saw in qualifying one, these SCX super soft rear tyres are good maybe for 2 flying laps, 3 if you're lucky. And Danny Munoz, as he now makes way through the third sector, is on his 4th time lap.
Barry Baltus waiting to head back out and have another go at it. Baltus sat in 2nd place at the moment, and we pick up Munoz, and just as you were saying, Lewis, it looked like yeah, sector 1 great, but that tyre has cried enough, and he's down in half a second off at the moment, not going to improve. Let's just nip down to pit lane. The final 4 minutes. Al's got an update.
Yeah, just confirming what I think you were saying. Holgado on your screens now is now on a fresh set of rubber. The first one that he was on was an old set, so let's go.
Well, he's got his banker in. Thanks for that, Al. He's got his banker in, so that's the main thing. And Danny Holgado, this could be quite spectacular. Let's see if we can follow him all the way through the opening sector. Turn 2 as he takes it on through here. This is where the bike looks so quick. Take a load of curve through here as well. We jump on board with him. We need to be looking the other way because it's just as exciting now as well. But you can see just how much the rider has to work climbing all over these calyxes. And Danny Holgado, we take him through the opening sector. He's 13 thousandths under. Danny Holgado's fresh rubber in the final 3 minutes is looking good enough for a massive improvement. Talking of improvements, Danny Munoz doesn't improve this time around. He was on course to do so, but made a mess of the final sector.
2 time laps available to Danny Holgado here on this set of SCX rubber. So as he now attacks turn 11, he does have the safety net. If this lap goes wrong, he has one more available to him, but of course down in 16th place at the moment with his closest championship rival Manu Gonzalez, some 9 places ahead of him. Holgado has to get this right. He's lost time too to Alonso, so already he's playing catch-up. Tenths back.
And whatever Alonso's doing in that second sector is pretty majestic. The other thing with Danny Holgado is he doesn't really want to be making a mistake at the final corner, because that's his next lap gone straight away, really, because you can't really carry any speed from an error on this front straight because it's so tight. A 90-degree left-hander that ends this lap and starts the next one. We pick up his teammate David Alonso, who's going again and gets up towards turn 1, and he's looking to see if he can just move the goalposts a little bit more. Ethan Guevara, intelligent stuff from the Spaniard. The number 28 is locked in combat and has got David Alonso as a great marker for the final 2 minutes.
Yeah, he's copying how Piqueras' homework there because it worked for him on the first run, so I'll give that a go. Guevara up in 6th place and keen to avoid the mistake he made in Brazil when he had podium potential, but of course qualified on row 5.
Where is that? And I think he was a little bit wide there, you know, but he just pulled it down. Danny Holgado, he's going to improve, but only up to 13th place, the head of the 5th row. So this is now or never for Danny Holgado. It's his final flying lap. We need to be having a look at his teammate, David Alonso. He's an 1/8 of a second up through the opening sector, and then we're going to pick him up through that second sector. The time, he's blown it. He's made a faux pas down there at turn 11, and that is going to really blow Ethan Guevara as well, because he's going to lose his reference. So David Alonso, he's going to come through for one more lap, but this one's gone.
Fastest first sector by a mile has just been said by Alonso Lopez. He's a quarter of a second up already at the first sector, but we know that Alonso found something special through sector 2. Best first sectors for Lopez and for Alex Escreech on the forward bike.
I was going to say Escreech is up as well. Let's see what the number 11 can do. Guevara has backed out of it. That was down at turn 12, so he's got Alonso as a reference again, although there's a little bit more distance between the rider on your screen right now versus the rider who is behind him. David Alonso arguably doesn't need to be doing this. You would think the 2:05.2 is okay, but Alonso Lopez is still just over a 1/10 of a second under halfway round.
Yeah, there's every chance that the pole sitter is going to be named Alonso, but we're not quite sure which of the two it's going to be at the moment. Keep an eye on Barry Baltus too with a very good first sector. The Belgian looking for his second career Moto2 pole.
Down through turn 19, we're bringing Colin Vire at the minute, but we need to be looking at Alonso Lopez. Has he had traffic with Aaron Canet? Yes, he has. Drops a couple of tenths in that third sector, and I'll tell you what, I'm not sure if, no, Alonso Lopez isn't going to get round, is he? 20 seconds and less to go, so this is going to be it for Alonso Lopez. He sits 4th at the moment. Yellow flags, that's going to blow a load of lap times, and that is
I think
it is Baltus down at turn 12. So Barry Baltus, well, that's the obvious pun, but we won't say it on a live broadcast. He's on his rear end. Let's go for that one instead. Place for Alonso Lopez, who moves onto the front row to deny Angel Piqueras the first front row in Moto2. And did Alonso Lopez just about get under the checkered flag?
He did.
He did. Brilliant stuff. Oh dear me, we've got a tea party.
Huertas also on the floor down at turn 12, so have they had separate crashes altogether? Huertas is behind Baltus. Baltus is up behind Salah. He's going to surely top the front in the middle of turn 12, and yeah, Huertas with absolutely nowhere to go.
I wonder if Huertas was actually just in deep there and just had nowhere to go. Obviously not anticipating that Barry Baltus was down as well. So that's a shame for Adrian Huertas, because he's actually been going pretty all right across the course of this weekend and finds himself down in 17th. Of course, Ivan Otola hasn't set a lap time.
Are they going to clear these yellows in time? No, they're not. The yellow flag's still waiting because Angel Piqueras was up halfway around the lap. He was looking good for a potential dart at the front row of the grid. So given that everyone's now come through those yellow flag zones, I'm not so sure we're going to see any further improvements in his qualifying session. Gonzalez taking the checker flag in 9th. Holgado, the World Championship leader, in 15th place, and punishing them in full. A first Moto2 pole position, heading the way of the rapid Colombian, David Alonso.
It is going to be a first career pole, isn't it, for David Alonso in Moto2, and therefore a first for Colombia. We're picking up Alex Escreech, who is working his way round, but Escreech, well, I'll tell you what.
Did they clear them in time, I wonder?
I think they cleared it for Escreech's group. The first group, no, but Escreech, yes. But it's this third sector, it's this gnarly car park section that just seems to be slowing riders down in their charge to pole. And again, it's 2/10 drops for Alex Escreech. I'll tell you what, though, if he can hold that, that's going somewhere near the second row of the grid.
Yeah, and another rider to keep an eye on too is Aaron Canet, who's on a personal best. He might just push Holgado further back. Holgado currently in 15th place, so his day, which looked like he'd rescued to a certain extent by getting through Q1, might be about to be damaged again. Here comes Vietti leading this pair on the Boscascoro. It does well if he improves from there. He doesn't. Screech does up onto row 3 and 7, so Gonzalez back to 10th, and Holgado does drop down to P16.
What a disaster for Danny Holgado. He had better pace than that, but unfortunately, it's as we say, yellow flags so often, just scuttering a load of lap times. A little bit of mixed emotions down there, it seems. They're very, very happy for the first ever Colombian pole in Moto2. That's 2:05.203, set by David Alonso. But they will be a little bit miffed that the championship leader finds himself on the 6th row. He's going to be joined by Adrian Huertas and likewise Ivan Orpola, who didn't get a lap time in courtesy of his turn 7 spill. But no one could stop David Alonso today, really. The Colombian in fine fettle from Friday, and now he's going to go on pole for Grand Prix Sunday. Fantastic stuff for the Colombian, who has really grown in stature in the Moto2 class of late.
The baby-faced Colombian is on pole position for the very first time. Stories across that front row of the grid with Baltus, his best qualifying for quite some time. First front row since Malaysia late last season. Baltus, who's had a tough start to the season, of course, third in the world last season. He looks like he's back on form. And Alonso Lopez, having ditched a Boscoscuro, clearly loving life on a Calyx. That is a first front row for Lopez since Australia 2024, and completing the success stories at the front. Got to give a nod again.
Massive.
Double long lap or not. What a qualifying display from Angel Piqueras to qualify in 4th place. One better than Brazil last week.
You can't knock Angel Piqueras there. 4th place, 2 long laps tomorrow, but 2 very, very quick ones today. Good enough to get him in the head of that second row. Giustino Vietti, likewise, nice to see Senna Aegis back to the form we know he's capable of. That's in 6th place for him. Escridge, your top forward machine, well, that's obvious. 7th for him. Guevara, Valle, and Gonzalez down on the 4th row. I tell you what, Gonzalez on the 4th row, Holgado down on the 6th row. We've got a proper Moto2 fight back coming up tomorrow. Remember what happened in Brazil in Moto3 when Quiles and Almanza qualified down the field? I think we might be having a Moto2 version of that coming up at Kota tomorrow.
Yeah, so the championship leader 16th, the rider second in the championship 10th, the rider third in the world championship, Dani Munoz 15th on the grid, the rider 4th in the world championship is Guevara, he's 8th. So a lot of the championship early front runners playing some serious catch-up on the grid tomorrow, and a big opportunity after scoring nothing in Buriram for David Alonso to catapult himself right back towards the top of the World Championship picture after 3 races.
Yeah, good to see the Colombian fans as well making a journey up from South America, or wherever they are in America. Actually, there's a lot of Colombians here in the United States, so they will definitely be coming out in their droves to support David Alonso, who has backed his first Moto2 pole. A fantastic lap it was, ahead of Barry Baltus, the Belgian. Alonso Lopez's 27 GP streak without a front row comes to an end, but Angel Piqueras, you just cannot knock him. It's personal best, one better than last week in Brazil, as you say, there in 4th. Just outside, we've spoken a lot about Q2, obvious reasons for that, but who else can we keep an eye on tomorrow? Mario Aggi down in 19th place, you'd have expected a little bit more than that, and on any other day, I'd say Dennis Onku 26th is someone to keep an eye out for tomorrow, but blockbuster or not, I don't think there's going to be a fairy tale ending here stateside for the Turk.
No, and the 2 former Moto2 winners here in Austin are deep on the grid. Tony Arbolino, 14th. He'd shown enough potential in the weekend to expect a little more than that. And of course, as we saw in qualifying 1, Sergio Garcia, the 2024 winner, down in 25th place on the grid. But it's Alonso and the Alonso queuing up, ready to weigh themselves in Parc Ferme. David Alonso on pole, and Alonso Lopez will complete the front row with the Belgian Baltus in between them.
Yeah, let's see if Baltus can actually get to Parc Ferme or not, because he obviously dropped it down at turn 12. Haven't seen him down there yet.
After being clipped by Huertas.
Yeah, there's nothing like crashing, getting up, and then having a number 99 Ital Trans racing machine on top of you as well. I'm sure that's comfortable. There is Barry Baltus walking down pit road now, getting in towards Parc Ferme, and gotta say, great to see Barry Baltus back at the front and back on form.
Yeah, he said they made a big step through the weekend with top speed on his bike, and looking through the top speed rankings through Brazil and through here, that does back him up. He's much closer to the top of the top speeds, and of course, starting from the front of the grid, there's only one rider he's got to try and overtake off the line.
Yeah, but at least it's an easy one. Not. David Alonso is a real hustler. We know he's going to be spectacular. We were waiting to hear from him. I don't think we're going to be able to. So that's it. Moto2 done, and that means that I'm out of here. Matt Burt's are going to be moving in. Lewis, the results.
David Alonso, a maiden pole in Moto2 from Barry Baltus and Alonso Lopez, his first front row for nearly 2 years. Angel Piqueras, career best 4th, although he does have 2 long laps tomorrow. Celestino Vietti and Senna Aegis complete the front row. Escridge, Guevara and Valle on row 3. Gonzalez deep in 10th. Championship leader Daniel Holgado even deeper, down in P16, despite coming through qualifying 1. Ivan Ortola in 18th place, of course, after he crashed at the start of qualifying 2. Sasaki crashed early in Q1, but did secure P21 ahead of Navarro, Van Gorberg and Prosato. Sergio Garcia will have to go from 25th if he's to match his victory in 2024. But a maiden Moto2 pole for David Alonso. It's been a long time coming, but Alonso is on pole for the first time in Moto2. We begin our build-up to the Tissot Sprints in just a moment.
MotoGP has ventured from North to South America for our third Sprint Saturday in 2026, which comes from the ultimate white-knuckle ride of the Circuit of the Americas. Haven for live music lovers and foodies. Austin first with the calendar 2013, and this weekend they host the 38th US Grand Prix. Who will sprint to success in the Lone Star State? It's time for MotoGP. What a layout, what a venue. This Circuit of the Americas on the outskirts of Austin, Texas is Fabio Di Gianantonio setting a new all-time lap record this morning, back-to-back pole in the space of a week. A fully VR46 racing team rider. He conquered Kota in qualifying, and it's a tough old prospect, that one. 20 turns, 5.51 kilometres, 3.34 miles. Such a busy first couple of seconds before you drop down the hill into heavy braking's over turn 11. And a bit of a breather, bit of respite as you go down the 1,200 metre long back straight longest on the Grand Prix calendar. And then, of course, with managing those tyres through 16, 17 and 18 on the right-hand side. Taking hot spots where there are ample of them. Turns 1, turn 12, certainly a very good overtaking opportunity. This was 12 months ago. Pecco Bagnaia on the inside of Alex Marquez into turn 12. Our first into Brazilian soil in 22 long years was certainly worth the wait, wasn't it? 6 days ago as Fabio Di Gianantonio and Marc Marquez and Jorge Martin toughed it out behind runaway leader Marco Bezzecchi, who would eventually go on to be crowned and win a 4th successive MotoGP race. Pecco Bagnaia's 4-star to 2026 continued as he crashed out while in pursuit of Johan Zarco. It was a great battle between Digia and Marc Marquez, fully victory in the Sprint Saturday over in Brazil. But in Goiânia, it was Digia who got some revenge on Marc in the sprint. As a fully acclaimed, they won too. Marco Bezzecchi's 4th successive victory in Grand Prix. He's led the last 101 laps to boot as well. Jorge Martin taking 2nd place. So we arrive here for round 3. Chapter 3 in 2026 with an affiliate 1-2 in the World Championship. The opening Grand Prix in Thailand, well, that was pretty dramatic, wasn't it? We had high drama throughout our first visit to Brazil since 2004 at the Autodromo International Ayrton Senna in Goiânia last weekend. Well, this incredible start of the 2026 just rolled on and on and on. Thankfully, for all of us who are big fans and lovers of MotoGP. Once again this morning there was another record-breaking Q2 session. There was plenty of talking points and a bit of controversy to throw in to the fold as well. Fabio Di Gianantonio, well, he'd not had a pole position prior to last weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix in 1,393 days. He has now had 2 in the space of 7 after his brilliant performance to top qualifying last weekend in Goiânia. Well, he has done the business once again here in Texas. What a session it was, what a morning it was for Fabio Di Gianantonio. On the podium here in Austin in all 3 Grand Prix classes. He's 2:00.136, absolutely destroying Mari Vinales' 2-year-old all-time lap record here. The top 8 rides actually in Q2 this morning were inside of the old all-time lap record. In today's sprint, which is over 10 laps, slightly delayed after the red flag in Moto2 qualifying for Yuma Sasaki's crash at turn 6. Marco Bezzecchi, the World Championship leader, looking for his first sprint win of 2026, goes from 2nd on the grid, but that will not be the case as he goes in search of a 5th successive Grand Prix victory here in Austin tomorrow. More on that very, very shortly. For the sprint, Pedro Acosta is completing your front row of the grid. As mentioned, so many talking points to cover off from this morning's qualifying action. Matt Burt, Livingston in the commentary box, talking you through all of the action over 10 laps coming up. About 3:10 local time. We're just running about 10 minutes behind schedule. Jack Appleyard is down in pit lane. Fabio Di Gianantonio, what a week he's had in South and North America so far, Lewis. But there's been some fairly major talking points in the lunch break. We saw 3 separate incidents for balking and blocking in that Q2 session, involving Pecco Bagnaia and Ayagura, involving Enea Bastianini and Marc Marquez. Another incident involving Marc Marquez, Luca Marini and Marco Bezzecchi. The outcome is, as you can see on the screens, a pair of 2-place grid penalties for tomorrow's Grand Prix for Bez and Marini, and that does have a significant impact on the front of the grid.
It does. So the penalty will not be applied for the sprint. So if you're wondering what that means for the sprint grid, it means nothing. But tomorrow, for essentially both playing a part in disrupting Marc Marquez, here is the incident on the back straight as Marini initially sort of backs out of it. You see Bezzecchi catch him and then back off himself and back towards Marc Marquez, who's trying to push on for another lap. That scuppers any hope that Marc Marquez had of improving on what became 6th place in the end. So 2 place grid penalties, mitigation for Bez and for Marini, that there were other riders involved in the action, because you can see just ahead of Marini was Joan Mir's Honda. So as a result of that, Marco Bezzecchi will go back from 2nd to 4th on the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix, which will promote Acosta up to 2nd and Pecco Bagnaia onto the front row of the grid. And Luca Marini will go from 9th to 11th, which will promote Ferdinand Daguerre and Ayagura off a place in turn. But reminder, those penalties apply to the grid for tomorrow, not for today's sprint.
So if Marco Bezzecchi is to set a new record of leading the most successive laps in the MotoGP World Championship in a main Grand Prix, he'll have to do it the hard way from 4th place on the grid here tomorrow. He has led the last 101 laps on Sundays, just 3 more tomorrow in a row. The first 3 of the Grand Prix, of course. He will break Jorge Lorenzo's 11-year-old record, going all the way back to 2015. Marc Marquez then, as always, he has been at the forefront of the headlines in Austin. Big crash at 190 kilometers an hour yesterday for Marc, going through the 4th gear left-hander of turn 10, followed by a couple of those significant talking points this morning. And Bastianini was pretty angry. He felt that Marc had impeded him on his last lap in that Q2 session. No sanction for Marc. But let's look at the brilliance right now of Fabio Di Giannantonio. In the moment of his MotoGP career, without any question, the 27-year-old Italian, despite a crash yesterday afternoon in practice at turn 11. Back-to-back poles, going for back-to-back Grand Prix podiums in MotoGP tomorrow, Lewis, for the first time. And you have to say, Marc Marquez still is a big favourite from the 2nd row of the grid, not just in this sprint on the Grand Prix tomorrow, but Viggia, he is right on the money here. He could be one to upset the form book.
He's got a real chance from the front of the grid, riding in arguably the best form of his MotoGP career. Confirmation on your screens that the incident which you're about to see here, with Pecco Bagnaia being delayed by Ayagura. Reminder, the first 4 bikes in your picture are all on out laps. Pecco Bagnaia was on a hot lap and felt that he'd been balked. Decision in the end from the stewards was to take no further action, and that Ayagura didn't unfairly impede Pecco Bagnaia, so that will not see any change to their relative grid positions, certainly not backwards. Pecco Bagnaia and Ayagura in turn will each, of course, move forwards a place.
What we know is a massive MotoGP fan, because we've heard from him several times before here in Austin in text. I'm delighted to say he's back with us for more MotoGP fun here today and tomorrow. It's American comedian Bill Burr, who's with Jack.
Yeah, he is indeed. 2nd time that I've spoken to Bill over the last couple of years. I remember catching up with you, what was it, 2024 it must have been now. So you're a big...
2023.
That long ago, wow.
Yeah.
Age since then. You're a big...
You look great.
Thank you.
On to it up there?
Yeah, just about. I need a cap like
You
yours.
end up like me, I think.
There's a
You
Turkish...
should go to Turkey. Making a MotoGP in Turkey.
There is a Turkish rider who's giving me some contacts the other day as well. But anyway, we'll move on from that. So, you're a huge MotoGP fan. We know that. You speak about it on your podcast all the time. So, what is it like actually being here and experiencing these bikes on a circuit like this?
It's surreal. Like, I can't believe I'm here and get to walk through the paddock and just not even... I haven't really seen any of the riders, but just to see the bikes is like seeing a celebrity to me. So, you know, last time I came here, I think I came here just for the race, so I never saw the sprint. And what I do love about the sprint is how, you know, everybody can just rip up the tires. So everybody just goes all out, you know, and what I like about the race is that it's more of a, you know, it just amazes me, like last year when you watched Pedro Acosta come up to the front in the first half of the race, riding as fast as Marquez, and then he would fade, and Marquez still had the grip, and you're like, how does he do that? How does he do that? That's amazing. All right, I got to get over here for this thing here.
No problem. Very quick before I let you go, the grid, to me, is a little bit upside down. Marc, the king of Kota, but just hasn't had it all his own way at the start of the season, in particular here as well. I mean, how do you see this one playing out? Who's your money on?
How do I see this playing out? I'm a stand-up comedian. I can barely ride a Vespa. I will say that I do enjoy when some of the best riders are a little, you know, they don't qualify up front, because then you get to watch them pass
makes it more exciting. And towards the start, they always try to make up like 2 or 3 positions. So if what you're saying is the truth, we might see, I don't know, some action in that first turn. I was getting nervous about that.
I think we're going to have fun, Bill, for sure. Great to have you here. Enjoy the race.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Jack. Thanks as always to a genuine big-time MotoGP fan here in the United States of America. Bill Burke, glad to have his company in the paddock once again. He gets to see a sprint then for the very first time live. Just confirmation on your screens there. We covered off those 3 investigations which were taking place in the lunch break post Q2 this morning. No further action taken after reviewing the incident involving Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini. Enea thinking he was the wrong party, Marc pleading his defence, and the jury coming out on the side of the 93 on this occasion.
Yes, so just one incident in qualifying this morning which resulted in penalties, which were for this man Marco Bezzecchi and for Luca Marini. But we'll worry about that tomorrow because, as mentioned, those penalties do not take effect today. So Marco Bezzecchi does have a chance to extend his World Championship lead. The top 2 in the World Championship do both start on the front row of the grid. Top 3, should I say. Of course, with Jorge Martin now ahead of Pedro Acosta, but they will both fancy their chances of taking the fight to Fabio Di Gianantonio. 3 different manufacturers in the front row and 4 in the top 5.
And of course, he was such an integral part of the MotoGP paddock over recent years as part of the F1 MotoGP stewards and one of the all-time greats. 250cc and a 500cc world champion in the same season, in fact, in 1985. A truly unique achievement, a unique rider, and I'd like to say, Jack is joined by Freddie Spencer.
I am indeed, yes. We'll walk down to the front with you. We can walk and talk, Freddie. A true legend, a Hall of Famer, of course. One of only a select few. What is it like to be back here on a special weekend with Kenny receiving his accolades yesterday as well?
It is an absolute pleasure to see Kenny receive his medal. You know, we had such great battles, and what he did to change the sport, and to be in the Hall of Fame with other American patriots and all the ones being the first class is an honor, an absolute honor. And so I can't wait for our interview Q&A this afternoon. Kenny, Kevin Swanson, myself, that we're going to have in the VIP. We'll have a lot of fun.
Absolutely is. They're lucky people to get to enjoy that. Let's look at what's to come here then in this sprint. I am struggling to work out who's the favourite, what's going to happen. It's a real tough one to decipher.
It is, and the thing is, you know, with Pedro, and you know, he shows, you know, he's strong in the race. We got Marco, and then we have, you know, Gigiani. I mean, he's come on so strong. And then, you know, we'll have to see what Mark is, you know, with that sprint race was a master class last weekend in Brazil. And so, you know, you certainly can't count Mark out. What I like is the drama. I mean, it's so competitive, and you never know what's going to happen. I mean, Marco's amazing. Bezzecchi in the Grand Prix, he struggled in both Thailand and in Brazil in the sprint race. But in the Grand Prix, just runs away with it. So you never know what's going to happen.
That's the way we like it.
That's that way we love it.
Enjoy it, Freddie. Great to see you here.
Thank you so much.
As the late, great Nicky Hayden famously said back in the day, the reason why you line up on a Sunday is because you never quite know what is going to happen. Saturday here in Austin in 2026, and yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. It sort of adds to the already exciting ingredients ahead of this 10-lap sprint. Marc Marquez having to do that work to the back of the second row this afternoon. Yeah, I had the pleasure yesterday of hosting the press conference where MotoGP